Welcome to the PowettPlay Podcast, where international cricketer Kieran, Powell and marketing genius Shannon join forces, bringing you captivating conversations with the biggest players in cricket and business. Join us as we dive into the lives of current stars in the cricketing world, the legends before them, and those extraordinary icons whose performances changed the game in both cricket and business. Exploring journeys both on and off the pitch, the boardroom, and everything in between. Get ready for an exhilarating blend of cricket, life, and business insights, with two insatiably passionate, infuriatingly no-holds-barred hosts, who, unfortunately for the rest of us, live and breathe this stuff for a living.
Hello everybody, and on this episode, which is episode 54 of the PowettPlay Podcast, we're going to be looking at an end of season review where me and Kieran look over the Test Player of the Year, ODI Player of the Year, T20 Player of the Year, and various other bits and pieces. So thank you for joining us on this special episode, but let's get stuck in straight away and let's have your thoughts on who you think is the Test Player of the Year.
Yeah, I've gone with Jasprit Bumrah. I think initially I first went with Joe Root, not giving it too much depth. Obviously, I know that he's had such a stellar year. I think he's got 1,500 runs, average of 50 plus. So I think that in itself is a hell of an achievement. But then I started doing some research and stuff, and I see Jasprit Bumrah is at 66 wickets, I think, at 13 apiece or something like that, or 15 apiece across
15 apiece,
Yeah, and then to go and do what he's currently doing in the Border Gavaskar series, where he's asked to carry India on his back, and he's doing it at 13 apiece, so he's going at better than what is absolutely ridiculous in my mind. I just thought that, I couldn't not give it to him. Like, we're seeing somebody that's probably going to go down as the best fast bowler ever, and that's a hell of an achievement in itself.
Yeah, well, I've gone with what you initially meant. I went with Joe Root on the basis of the six centuries for me. Yeah, that for me is over the 18 test, I think it is. No, sorry, 18 test, I think it is. 17, sorry. To score 6, so basically one every 3 test matches, give or take, I think for me is a hell of an achievement this season or this year. But when you do what you mentioned there about what he's doing at the minute, in arguably it is the top 2 in my opinion. Obviously, at the minute playing Test cricket, I think it's a hell of an effort from Jasprit Bumrah. So I will, say that it's not a straightforward call with Joe Root on this one anyway. But that was my take on that. Both of them have had brilliant years as well. One of my emerging players, when we come on to that, I was genuinely tempted to put him down as well, but we'll come on. Yeah, so no spoilers, but for someone to come in and do what he's done, but we'll lead on to that. So in terms of the 50 so one day cricket wise, who have you gone with?
I've gone with Wanindu Hasaranga. I think he's only played 10 matches, but he's managed to get 26 wickets. So if you can have a bowler that's going to contribute 2.5 wickets to your cause every match, you know that you don't really have. You've already got 25% of the wickets that you need. There wasn't much one-day cricket played by top-tier nations this year, obviously with the T20 World Cup, and guys sort of focusing on leagues and Test cricket outside of that. So I think for me, for him being, I guess, the probably leading wicket taker from top-tier nations, I don't think there was much in the way of frontline batters, and I don't think I could necessarily judge batters as well, given that it wouldn't have been the best players available to respective countries across the format. So I think that's why I went with Wanindu Hasaranga.
Yeah, and I think when I went into looking into it, it is quite hard to decipher from the games you played against the more competitive nations versus the games that you play, in against the other teams and stuff. Whereas my decision, I've gone with Saim Ayub based on the fact that, again, maybe I'm looking more on the century side of things. So he scored 3 centuries in 9 games. And I think that's for me, in the one-day format, so scoring 515 runs in 9 innings, averaging 64 with a strike rate of comfortably over 100, I think is a pretty fair return for his season. So again, I looked at the left arm spinner again. I thought, but yeah, that was my choice. But again, it has been pretty hard. Other than it's been hard for me to pick that one. To be fair, with the volume of games that they play and stuff. So we'll move swiftly on to the T20 Player of the Year for you.
Ashdeep Singh. I think we've got an even tie here, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. I picked him. Thought he'd massive standout year for him.
I think that what he was able to do for India in that World Cup, obviously everyone's trying to have different combinations, left, right, etc.
Yeah,
swinging that new ball up front and providing them with some useful overs and wicket taking ability. Throughout the middle. I think he was very, very effective and allowed India to use Bumrah in different ways because of his effectiveness. So I think overall he played something like 13 matches and he got 30 odd wickets. So I think you couldn't have asked for much more from him, to be fair.
No, I think that he spoke about a lot, obviously, in terms of the T20 side of things from a batting perspective, but the way the strike rate he's had this year, for me, it's shown, the important. Well, it is obviously massively important taking wickets, but he's gone and done that and swinging the ball the way he did early on. Like I said, it's allowed India to go about it. They know they can attack with the way that he's doing it, and it allows them to, like I said, Bumrah to do different things, and also then you've got that spin option that they constantly have, whoever they pick and whichever options they go with. So for me, I think that was pretty much a nailed on pick for me, to be fair. So after, obviously, we've gone through the tests, the ODI and the T20, let's have a look at the performance of the year across all 3 formats. What was your thoughts on that one?
Again, my test cricket of the year, I've gone Jasprit Bumrah. I just think that what he's doing in this series, literally, it's as long as you don't get out to Bumrah, you'll get a score, you'll get runs, and the Australians have, I guess, after the first 2 tests, managed to find a way to figure that out. And I think what sort of highlighted that fact is the way that you look at how Sam Constas came in and made his debut. The way that he played sort of threw Bumrah off, obviously taking a different route in terms of scooping and reverse scooping. That instantly took pressure off of Usman Khawaja when you look at the way he played. He was able to free up himself a lot more, which allowed him to get into an innings. It allowed Manas to get into an innings, and in turn allowed for us to see a Steve Smith that we haven't seen of late. This looks like the old Steve Smith that England wouldn't be wanting to see in a year's time. So back-to-back centuries as well, closing in on 10,000 test runs. I think what Bumrah's been able to do on his own stands out head and shoulders apart from anything I've seen this year.
Yeah, I think obviously when we sent the note through in terms of obviously selections and stuff, and when I'd probably put mine down as an individual performance in terms of like a specific game, but when you obviously explained there about Bumrah, you've hit the nail on the head completely in terms of the magnitude of the occasion as well. And I think sometimes, when we dissect like annual reviews like this, there's always going to be that element of the caliber of teams you're playing against and the occasion and stuff like that. I think, people always talk about football in terms of like favourite goals and stuff. But for me, a measure of a goal is like the occasion and the timings and various bits and pieces like that, really. I think that when you mentioned there about Bumrah, I think, like you said, he's doing it now at this time, which speaks volumes of his capability and his skill set and obviously how he's going about it. For me, again, I feel like I've got a little bit biased, not biased as such, but I thought if you're scoring a triple century in the way that especially the test match, the games afterwards went in terms of the test series, for Harry Butt to score 300, I thought was a fantastic achievement. And for me, that would be the performance of the year. From my perspective, really, nothing much more to say on it. But I do think that scoring scoring 300. I appreciate it was an absolute road, but England did also then go and get a result, which is something that you don't often see sometimes in the situations when it can be as flat as some of the test pitches can be at times. So that's who I've gone with on this occasion.
Yeah, now Harry Brooks obviously absolute superstar. What the numbers he's managed to put up so far in Test cricket, I can't wait to see it sort of click for him in sort of one-day cricket. I think he's starting to get a hold of T20 franchise. Well, not franchise cricket, T20 international cricket in the World Cup. He started to look good towards the end. I'd like to see him sort of figure out the tempo for one-day cricket, like what it stands for. I think earlier in the year we sort of made a call that he would be captain in England at some point in the summer, and all of that sort of came to pass. So I think he's definitely if the Fab Four, Williamson, Kohli, Smith, and Root, he's definitely in that next generation's batch along with Joycewell.
Yeah, I think we spoke about it so many times, but for me, it's going to be hard for it to click though for the 50 over stuff for him because of the volume that he doesn't play. It's as simple as that. But it's also because of the volume of cricket that England actually play at 50 over wise. So it's going to be hard for him for it to click. Someone of his ability will naturally won't take long for it to click and figure out, timing and how to go about building an innings playing 50 over cricket, but because of the volume that England play, and also from a counter cricket perspective, it is going to it's got something that's probably not there at this moment in time, but undoubtedly will come. Emerging player from the year.
I think this is a straightforward, and I think
I might have to change my answer on that.
You look at Yashasri Joycewell. I think he almost won my Test Player of the Year. And I think obviously because they're still engaged in a series, he probably may, depending on how he goes, end up with more runs on the year than Joe Root, which is a fantastic in itself. But I think the way that he's come into Test cricket, he's got 4 centuries, everything's above 150. So he's clearly got an appetite. I think what's interesting as well is that he's not played a one-day international for India yet.
No.
And that's simply because India's got one of the greatest ever opening batsmen, and Shubman Gill averages 60 on the other end. So it's virtually impossible for him to move any of those two. But every format in T20 and in Tests, every time he's been given an opportunity, he's looked the part.
Yeah, I am going to... Well, the listeners and the people watching don't know that. Well, obviously the answers I sent to you, but what I will say is I agree with you, so I'm going to change my answer. But what I did have down initially was I was going to go with Gus Atkinson purely because of the impact that he's made in terms of like coming onto the international stage. So he's taken 52 wickets this year, but he's also scored a Test match century at Lords. So I do. It is. What Joycewell's done is unbelievable, definitely. So I did make the wrong call, but I would like to say that I do think that's a hell of a breakout for an emergence of county cricket to do what he's done this season in terms of taking 52 wickets and then also to score a Test match century is a hell of an achievement. So I will hold my hands up and say, I made the wrong call, but there was some thought process behind it. I realise I may have been slightly biased towards to England as well. It's not great either. Right, so moving down in terms of where we're at. So the most improved player then, what do you think to that one?
I've actually gone Casey Carty. I've gone Casey Carty because there's not been a great volume of one-day international cricket.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone we've seen in Test cricket and every other format are people that we've seen before. But I don't think people understand that Casey Carty is from St. Martin. I mean, they know he's from St. Martin, but like St. Martin literally, Casey Carty is one of, I'd say, no more than 5 professional cricketers to come from that island in total.
Whatever.
One of 5. Ever. Not this year, not this decade, ever.
Wow.
And for him to have come out this year, I think he scored 600 runs in ODI cricket. You don't have a lot of resources to look. He's the man.
Yeah. Wow.
And he's done, in my opinion, just knowing what he's come from and like seeing him grow over the years. I think that it's an amazing story, honestly, for him, his family, his friends, teammates, everything. But just for him to be able to produce at the international level what he has thus far, I hope that he continues to grow. I hope that he gets a grip or a method for Test cricket as well. It's something that I've been wanting to see him do, is play Test cricket. So I'm happy that he's doing that now, but I'd say that he probably needs to get some runs in Pakistan, knowing the Caribbean system. But yeah, that's my emerging player of the year.
Yeah, well, I definitely can't disagree with you there, especially obviously from your perspective of knowing him and seeing obviously what the development. And you mentioned there about, that just blow my mind, that like in terms of professional players to come out and say, that is fair play. So, and again, in terms of the year he's had, and like you mentioned there, in terms of the ODI cricket side of things, fair play. I've gone with Kamindu Mendes, and it might seem like obviously like most improved, slightly perceived as like a underwhelming sort of thing, but to make his debut in terms of Test cricket in 2002, to then come back and do what he's done this year is phenomenal, and across formats as well, obviously. But from the most improved, I'm looking specifically at Test cricket in this example, because to go and do what he's done, he's been fantastic. He's really, we speak a lot about like changing of fortune in terms of like from a career perspective, and really cashing in terms of like opportunity and striking whilst the iron's hot as such. And I think he's actually gone and really lit up his year this year and changed his life for the best. And when you look at his statistics and you look at the runs he's scored, fair play to him. And yeah, it was a no-brainer for me in my opinion, that one.
No, can't argue that either. He's put on some performances that have been breathtaking this year. He scored, maybe 3-4 centuries season as well.
I think it's
so. He sort of commanded a higher batting position in the order, and they completely had to reshuffle the Sri Lankan team to accommodate what seems to be a rare talent coming to the fore. So completely, and can't disagree with that.
No, and it's great to see that talent coming from Sri Lanka as well. But that was a real big thing. I know we spoke about before in terms of what's coming through there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the series against Australia after the India series. Australia then go there. As it stands at the minute, I think they need to win 2, Australia, to get to the World Test Champions semi-finals. So it'll be interesting to see where it gets to in terms of whether they need to get a win over there, which would be, again, I think it'll be a really good series. They have found it tough down there as well, Australia, and it'll be turning from pretty early doors, to be fair. So we've done the most improved. We're going to go for like an unsung hero sort of for the year, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about this. So fire away.
No, so I've gone for Jofra. I think obviously the ECB has invested a lot into Jofra. So a lot of franchise teams, unfortunately, at times, just through the nature of the game. I think we can blame Joe Root for this. I'm going to throw the blame at Joe Root, who bowls an express team of 40 overs in New Zealand in an innings. So that sort of set him back quite a bit for some time. But I think he's come back into the game now. He hasn't seemed to have too many flare-ups from since they've brought him back. They've done a really good rehab program with him, it seems. Also seems as though the way of reintegrating him back into international cricket has been perfectly thought out. And the global game needs Jofra Archer. You've got all these other quick, fast bowlers around the world, and I think what Jofra adds is a different dimension. Jofra's skill, his whippy action, sort of Michael Holding-esque. He just brings a lot to the game, and obviously from an English vantage point, I know that what he means to you as an English fan, and just to England cricket on a whole, just changing the dynamics of how they go about performing and preparing. So I just think that Jofra coming back and being fully healthy has been something not only good for English cricket, but just good for cricket on a whole.
Do you think if we was to fast forward 12 months from now, I mean, you're doing this in 2025, if Jofra was to play the series against India this summer, and then obviously give or take the dates, say the first 3 tests in the Ashes, do you think we could be talking about him being, talk of having the player of the season from a Test cricket perspective next year?
No, you're going to need to play pretty much most of those matches to be in contention, because these are going to be high octane, high intensity matches. So I don't think that someone can be limited in. These are both 5-test series. So first of all, I don't see him playing more than 3 tests in any particular series. Some of them it might be 2. So it's more going to be an impact thing, because obviously Test cricket, he's going to be asked to bowl some overs. They can literally say in the first 2 tests, we're going to flatten it out and grind you down, which is not what he wants, or what England wants, because then he can get injured again. So I think they have to obviously be mindful of how they use him and Mark Wood, but I think having both options available, developing a Gus Atkinson, I really like Bryden Cass. I think he's a good bowler.
Yeah, nice action.
Yeah, Matthew Potts does pretty well when given an opportunity. So I think they've built out a good little core. But having said that, I don't see Jofra in particular being the Test cricketer of the year, just because I don't think that his body can handle that workload. Is he capable? If he could, 100%.
Yeah. My sort of like unsung sort of hero for the season, or for the year, should I say, might seem a little bit strange, but my reasoning behind it is I've got to go with Rachin Ravindra for New Zealand, because for me, every time I seem to watch him play, I really enjoy watching him bat, and I rate his left arm spin as well a lot. And similar to maybe with having Kane Williamson the side, it always feels as though that everything's on him at times, and then with certain, with the likes of like Tom Latham and Daryl Mitchell, it's like they're sort of the spearheads of the side, and I think he sort of like goes, maybe not, but like I just think he just gets down and he gets runs and he takes wickets, and he seems a real key component to that side, but maybe doesn't get the praise that he deserves because of his age, or maybe because of the senior heads in the team. But I think that he's, when inevitably Kane Williamson does retire, I think he's going to take over that mantle, and I think he's going to, I'm not saying he's going to take it to the heights of Kane Williamson by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they've got a more than capable replacement down the line as well. So it's a strange one. I appreciate that it's a bit different, but I think he does go under the radar a lot with how he's carried himself this season or year.
I think I like that option as well, and I think that he could have been someone in the emerging player of the year category as well.
Yeah.
He's had a very good year, obviously from the World Cup last year, continuing on this year as well. So, as you said, New Zealand has got someone that, when Kane eventually retires, there's someone that you can see of a younger next generation already gaining experience and doing well, that they can hand that mantle to in terms of being New Zealand's leading batsman.
Yeah. And then the final one from like a personal one is from a personal, individual player, should I say, is the captain of the year. And I'm looking forward to obviously your choice and a bit more of your reasoning behind that.
I've gone Rohit Sharma. I think obviously coming into the T20 World Cup, which was the ICC event of the year.
Yeah.
There was huge pressure on India coming in, especially after the IPL. You look at guys like Hardik Pandya, for example, that was under extreme pressure in the IPL. People not happy with him being named captain of Mumbai Indians over Rohit Sharma. But Rohit retaining the Indian captaincy, that again was a toss-up between who would be captain, because Hardik was captain in the season. Prior to that, Rohit and Virat weren't really active in the T20 fray. And then India not having won a T20 World Cup for, was it 20 years or something like that? So there's huge pressure on them. But they managed to somehow pull through, get to the finals, and then pull it off. So I think from that perspective, the captaincy, the nuance, they didn't lose too many matches as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I just think that, to be able to bounce back from a 50-over World Cup loss the year before in Australia, and in India, against Australia, and say, all right, we have another opportunity coming up. Let's try and maximize on this and plan and pull it off. I think that was really well done by Rohit Sharma.
Yeah, no, again, with the with them winning it, I totally understand it. I wanted to go a little bit different, based on, not different really, because it's not, but I picked Pat Cummins more on the fact that I've been really impressed with how they've gone about it this series against India. Ultimately, as well, obviously the other bits throughout the calendar year, but to go one down, the pressure as you as a captain is massive. And I think that the way that he's carried himself, the way he's backed players, especially with going into that second test, Marnus Labuschagne had a load of pressure on him in terms of what was going to happen. Obviously, they brought in McSweeney for the first the first 3 test matches, and they've made changes, and he seems to instill this massive belief within that group of players. And I think that he also strikes me as a real consummate professional, the way he goes about it, the way he lives his life outside of the game, the way he speaks in public, and the way he speaks in the press. And I look at him and I think, you know what? Yeah, I do see you as a genuine leader, and a real captain of someone who I would look up to. And I think that the way that the players go about it with Pat Cummins as captain is why I've gone with him, really. And I think that, I could have gone with Rohit Sharma, and I've spoken extremely highly of him, obviously, previously. But for me, when you go down 1-0 in a test series of this magnitude, to come back and do what they've done since has really, really impressed me. And I think that I'd like to give Pat Cummins a lot of credit for that. I appreciate that Travis Head has batted brilliantly, Steve Smith's batted brilliantly. As a bowling unit, they bowled superbly. But as a captain of that side, I think that's why I've gone with him.
Sounds good. Can't disagree with that.
So we're moving on to sort of performances of the year now, as a team perspective, and we're going to look at the underdog performance of the year. And this is obviously one we both definitely agreed with, and I think that it's hard to look elsewhere, to be honest with you. So
I'll let you announce it.
We both went with Afghanistan getting to the semi-final of the World Cup, which, I don't think anybody would have gone with that. And I think that, the volume of cricket that they're playing and the way that they played as a team, I thought it's a superb achievement, and it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I think it's not only the volumes of cricket, but the way that they play now. Like, Afghanistan is no longer an associate nation, and I hope people don't think or deem them an associate nation. Afghanistan is a full-fledged cricketing nation, and as you've seen, getting to 50-over World Cup finals, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the next step for them. They can potentially win something within this ICC cycle, as there's a major event every year until 2031. Wouldn't put it out of their depth, because they've got a very strong core. Their team is, for the most part, very young still, but extremely experienced, because they've been playing for a long time from a young age. And so it's just a matter of time, like timing, meeting the right opportunity for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I think I remember speaking about it at the time when we debriefed the World Cup, was the impact that the likes that Rashid Khan has had within there, but off the back of that volume of franchise cricket that they've played and the experience. And that they've really helped guide that side as well. And I think that the way that they played as a side that tournament, I thought they were superb. And to get to the semi-final, like you mentioned, definitely standout underdog performance for me of the year. Moving on to your favourite game, really, in terms of what you thought the best game was this year.
I think the T20 World Cup final sort of provided everything that we would have wanted from a cricket match. Obviously, pressure on both teams. South Africa, who's never won a major world event in the cricketing sphere, and India, who haven't won the T20 World Cup in a very long time. It sort of ebbed and flowed all the way until the end. But India managed to, I guess, keep their wits about them longer than South Africa did. At one point, definitely looking as though South Africa should walk it home, and in the end, India came out victorious. So, I think that was probably as good a T20 match as you were gonna see.
Yeah, I went with the Pakistan USA game. I think with it being the super over and the whole USA thing at the time, like I was quite. I think me and you both been open about how much we wanted the World Cup to go down as a success, because we want, we want that investment from the likes of businesses in the USA. So for me, it was a great game to watch, but it was also quite important to see, USA compete at that highest, at a high stage, so that they could show that they can compete with, some of the bigger nations, if that's the way to put it, as such. So for me, it was a really good game of cricket, and I enjoyed that. Although it wasn't, we spoke about certain wickets and certain pitches, should I say, in that tournament, but it wasn't, it wasn't the most affluent game as such. But from a competitive side of things, I thought it was a good game of cricket.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, pitches there were left a lot to be desired, but once we got away from, I guess, that particular venue, things started to even out a bit more throughout the rest of the tournament. So
they did. So moving on to sort of 2025, what do you sort of expect to see and happen really this next year?
I think it's going to be a good year, but it's going to be a year of change. From a West Indian standpoint, for example, I think this test tour, you've got quite a few guys whose immediate playing career is going to be on the line. I'd like to think with a new test coach coming in for the Australian series in the summer, I think there's probably 7 or 8 guys in the starting 11 that will be cautious of how they go about things in Pakistan.
Yeah.
I think from an international standpoint, we could possibly see the end of quite a few of our great players in this game. I mean, you look at Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma. Ravichandran Ashwin has also just retired. You don't know how long those guys continue to go on. Ravindra Jadeja as well. He's sort of that age range and group. And people have to understand, it's not even so much so a cricketing thing. Can these guys continue to play cricket? Yes, of course. You've done it for your entire life. When I say motivation, it's not motivation as in, do you want to continue to play cricket? Of course, they still love playing cricket, but when you look at other factors of life, the travel, the practice hours, it all catches up when you get to a certain age. Family life, having young kids at home now, having more than one kid, wanting to spend time with your kids when they're growing up, as opposed to, especially as an Indian international cricketer, traveling around the world 10 months of the year. So all these things sort of wear on a person over the course of time. I think we may possibly see the end of Steve Smith after next year's Ashes series as well. Usman Khawaja, if he goes that long, and possibly a Josh Hazelwood as well, because his body just unfortunately doesn't seem to be holding up as well as it used to be at one point in time. So there's a lot to look forward to, but there's also a lot to understand that this is potentially the end of a great era of cricket, and sort of be cautious of what's next to come.
Sorry to change the subject a little bit, but you mentioned there about the end of an era of cricket. Now, we discussed a couple of days ago about Sam Constance coming into that team and doing what he did and playing how he played. Do you see him being that new blood of style of Test cricket as an opener then, really? Or do you see that's just taking what David Warner was doing to that next step in terms of, I don't know, is the way he batted and the way he paddled and reverse paddled Bumrah, is that just the new way of playing?
So from what I've read and from what I've watched, that's not his style of play. That's actually his second.
No.
Yeah, that's actually his second quickest innings in his professional career to date in 4-day cricket. His quickest innings, he only stayed at the crease for 14 balls. So apparently he's actually somewhat of a grinder, whatever the case is. Now, obviously, being such a young guy and growing up in a T20 era, those are skills that he clearly possesses and understands how to utilize, even though he's still inexperienced in that sense of the word. I know that they said that he's been mentored by Shane Watson, and Shane Watson is very big on, the mental preparation and that sort of things as well. So these are things that he would have sort of been put through and prepared for. Okay, what are my options? So, I mean, to us, it seems as, well, this 19-year-old is doing something completely different, but these are, in his mind, calculated risks to get who's clearly the best bowler in the series off of his more successful line and length and his ability to attack a certain area and be successful. He completely changed the way how Bumrah bowled. He was coming down the pitch, he was backing away and slapping, paddling, all these things. So then that puts you into a one-day defensive mode as opposed to a test match attacking mode. And so I don't think that this is the way that he'll play throughout his career, but I think that obviously this is the way that a lot of, I guess, these younger guys will sort of take Test cricket and be more open to, I guess, pushing the way that they score.
When I was watching that and your points you made there, I was genuinely nervous for him because I just didn't want him to get out doing it because of pressure, how it would look, how it's being perceived for him to get out playing that sort of way. I appreciate what you're saying, I get it completely. I just didn't want him to get out that way because I thought it would have been, especially the Boxing Day test in front of that massive crowd. And I appreciate that, the adrenaline would have been pumped and stuff, but I just didn't want him to have that negative sort of like press basically on his back about how he got out in such a, prestigious game of cricket sort of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think clearly these young people that grow up on social media have a different perspective and view of the world than we do. I don't think that would have crossed his mind. I don't think getting out seemed to have crossed his mind, or the repercussions of playing that shot and getting out. So,
true.
I wouldn't have liked to have been him walking back into the dressing room after playing a reverse scoop in the third over of the day's play on day one. So
No. I wanted to ask you a bit of a question about Virat Kohli, and I hope you don't mind talking about this, because in terms of the impact he's having on within this side at the minute, how he went about that with Sam Constance, I thought was just terrible. I thought it just wasn't. He wasn't professional in any way at all. And from a changing room perspective, can a player's ego get too big for a change room and have a negative impact on the side?
Possibly. Generally isn't the case. I mean, how things are perceived from the outside are completely different to how things are perceived and received from the inside. So,
yeah, true.
I mean, whilst the outside world may have their own views and opinions on someone or what a team dynamic should be or someone's ego, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
The guys in the dressing room have a completely different relationship and understanding of each other. What he did was completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Let's not even get into unprofessional, because I think that goes without. He literally walked in that direction towards the young man. I think that he got off lightly with only a 20% fine.
Demerit point. Yeah.
Yeah, but the ego bit, I think that's more something that people as spectators would look at, as opposed to people within the dressing room. Because I think within the dressing room, he's still going to be a highly respected person. He's still going to be a leader, a father figure because it's a very young team. He's still the alpha and the omega in that dressing room. He is still Virat Kohli, and it's still Indian cricket and the way that they look up to and look after their senior players. So is it the best look? 100% not. And I'm sure he would have acknowledged that and said to the younger players, look, this isn't how you do things, because he has been, at the end of the day, a great ambassador for Test cricket. He's one of the Indian players in this day and age of T20 franchise leagues, etc., that has pushed for Test cricket to be at the forefront and sort of help to keep the game alive. So you have to understand all of these things as well.
Yeah. Obviously, we slightly went off topic there, but I do understand obviously what you're saying about the change for 2025 in terms of retirements and plans moving forward. We spoke about it quite a bit in terms of obviously Australia not making the same mistakes that they once did previously, and using period between now and the Ashes to maybe blood a few in, which is seemingly what they tried to do obviously in this series. Although obviously it's looked a bit, with the way that Nathan McSweeney's come in for 3 and then been dropped, but that's a different topic for a different day. But in terms of the franchise stuff that you mentioned there, one of the big things I see changing in the 2025 year is obviously England have made this stance in terms of NOCs for franchise cricket, on the way that they think it'll have a positive impact on county cricket over here. I see them making not necessarily a full U-turn, but I see them coming out with some form of alternative to basically allow players to go and play franchise cricket without them, and also having the ability to play county cricket. And I see that changing, and I'm not sure how they'll go about it. There's been talks of obviously, various bits of sitting down again to review it, and holding crisis talks about the policy and various bits and pieces. But I sort of wanted to see what you thought. Do you think they will look at changing that again, or do you think they'll have to stand the ground?
They'll have to change it. It doesn't matter if they want to or not. I think it's crazy that they can say that they want to not allow people to go to PSL, but then allow people to go to the IPL, which is being played at around the same time, and say that they look to strengthen county cricket. Well, what makes allowing people to go to one league over the other strengthening county cricket? If it's either you cancel all and make everyone stay, then fair enough, or you let everyone go, because then it's just going to become a situation where people are going to say, well, we're making most of our money playing in the respective T20 franchise leagues around the world anyway. We only play county cricket as and when we're available to sort of, I guess, pay respects to where we came from as cricketers. But if this is the route you want to go, everyone's just going to retire, and you're going to be left with, for example, what happens with the 40 over competition, which is basically a second/third 11 league. And the standard of English cricket, like, where are you going to get players from for your next generations?
Now, anything else you see for happening in 2025? Do you see any other breakout performances from people coming through, or anything like that?
The Ashes is going to be interesting. I'm not necessarily so big on Champions Trophy. He wins it or not. That's sort of an inconsequential thing.
Yeah.
I think I'd love to see Babar Azam and Shaheen Shah really come back to their full best. I think Pakistan needs them. World cricket needs them. Saeem Ayub, really like the look of him.
Yeah.
I think West Indies are going to make some very interesting selections and calls in the Test team going forward. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw the likes of Sherfane, Rutherford, and these guys. I wouldn't be surprised if Shea Hope gets the captaincy for the Australia series. Craig Brathwaite could potentially be dropped altogether. That's a different story unto itself. But I definitely think this will probably be Craig Brathwaite's last series as captain. And I think somebody else, maybe Shea, will come in as captain. I think it's going to be an interesting year overall. Is there anything sort of out of the norm that you can sort of foresee?
No, not really. I think for me, we touched on it a little bit. Obviously, when I mentioned about Jofra, is I'm intrigued to see how England utilise the pace bowlers between now and the Ashes to potentially get effectively what they're going to need, probably 6 quicks to be primed over the 5 Test matches on a rotation basis. So I'm intrigued to see how we get them all fit and all in having enough game time under the belts to be able to go and perform, because that, that's the big, they work towards that now. They quite clearly, obviously, they give Jimmy the tap on the shoulder. They had Broad made that call. So, and they've worked towards the Ashes next year. So, I'm intrigued to see how that goes. I'm intrigued to see what they do in terms. I apologise. This is just speaking about England, but I'm intrigued to see what they go with from a wicket keeping option wise, because they've spoke about Jamie Smith. But obviously, Ollie Pope.
No buts, no nuts, no coconuts. Ollie Pope has to sit.
Well,
Ollie Pope has played how many tests?
That's it. That's it for me, and I think I agree. I do agree with you. What I'm just saying, I'm slightly intrigued to see how whether anything will change with that at all.
No, I think for me personally, I think Jamie Smith definitely walks back into the team.
Yeah.
I think what's going to be interesting is, can Ben Stokes continue to be an all-rounder? I don't think he can.
No.
But he's currently batting at number 7. So what happens there?
Well, what
happens? Not to cut you off.
No.
Question is, what happens with Zach Rowley?
Well, that's it. This is it. What happens there? For me, I appreciate, obviously he has this fantastic relationship with Brendan McCullum, and he's come back obviously to play. White ball. He's not now, obviously, because he's injured for 3 months, so it's sort of, he's not going to be playing in the Champions. When is the Champions Trophy? That's in
February.
Yeah, so he's not going to be playing in that anyway. But I'd just like him to focus. He can't seem to be able to do both like he wants to be able to do. So at the end of the day, you need him in that, and he's going to be, the way he's going to do it, I think he's going to play as a batter. I don't know. It's a very good question. It's too good. He's too good to be batting 7.
He doesn't seem to want to bat anymore, though. He seems to only for big occasions.
Do you think sometimes? I think this is from a off the cuff question. So I apologise for putting you on the spot a little bit with this, but sometimes from a captaincy perspective, I feel like he wants to give so much opportunity all the time, and it's like sometimes you just went, no, you go. I want you to now go and bat 5 or 6 you've got to now bat 6 every game now until lead into Ashes, because you need to be going to Ashes series with 2 tons, 3 tons behind you, because you're going to have to bat time, you're going to have to bat overs in that Ashes series because you're going to be called upon. No matter, it's not going to be down to somebody else to go and do that. So at what point does he have to say, you know what? Yeah, okay, I put people before me, and that's the way I am as a person. But now I've got to look after my own backyard a little bit and make sure I go and spend time at the crease and bat a lot of overs.
What do you consider to be so much responsibility? Because the only added thing he's doing is setting a field and saying who should bowl when.
No, I don't mean the added responsibility. I mean, I always feel like he always gives everybody. It's rather than him doing it, he'd rather let somebody else do it, but not in a get out of he likes people to go and achieve it rather than him. Obviously, in a positive way as a person.
I understand what you mean. I just think that him being senior player, I think he needs to be batting at number 6. Obviously, Harry Brook is at number 5.
Well, yeah,
I think he's allowed Jamie Smith and Ollie Pope to go and bat ahead of him. I don't know if he's trying to instill confidence in them or whatever the case is. But now with him not being able to bowl, that definitely throws off the balance of the team as well, because the other batters in the top 6 aren't bowlers either. So how does the composition of your team work when he is that 4th seam bowling option?
Well, yeah. I don't know, and that's what they've got to figure out, because the other thing as well, obviously sorry to change a little bit of ways, that how they go about with Jacob Bethel batting at 3, because for me it was a rogue pick, because he's gone in batting 3 without a first class century. So for me, I appreciate he's done well and he's held his own, but with him playing all 3 formats, I would like him to go and play some red ball cricket, because effectively, if he's going to be England's next number 3, he needs that time to be playing red ball stuff, really. So they've got to get that 3 position sorted, which will then hopefully play a part with the fact, obviously, if Harry Brook's at 4-5 is Root and Brook. Your 6, he's obviously should be Stokes, and then you've got your 7 as your captain. But again, obviously, then
because then that throws into question: do England just play 4 seamers and leave the spin bowling option to Bethel and Root? Are Bethel and Root good enough to be your main spin bowling options in an Ashes series or in a series against India at home in the summer, because of Stokes' probably inability to fulfill his role as an all-rounder now? Do you drop Zach Crawley, push everybody up 1, and allow for an extra spinner to come in?
Possibly, but then that's when you're going to need Bethel to bowl in these early months with red ball. So
he's going to the IPL.
He's going to the IPL, exactly. So that rules that one out. And that's where, could they do it? Could they do that? The way, for me, for the Ashes, the way that, obviously it's been a bit different this year for Australia, because Nathan Lyon hasn't bowled all that many overs, to be fair. But the way they do normally use him is that person who basically allows the pace bowlers to have rest. So he ties an end up, he goes at 2 and over, he bowls 40 overs, and it works out perfectly. Obviously, this series has been a bit different with the day-night test and stuff, and so he hasn't bowled that many overs in comparison to what he has bowled before. So if England are going to go to Australia without a spinner, then it's even more important that it's about how you're managing the workload of your pace bowlers.
I mean, they have a spinner. I think Shoaib Bashir's got 50 wickets for the year as well. Discussed, but it's just down to the composition of the team. So I think if they want to take that risk of having Root and Bethel bowl all those overs, because we know in Australia, I mean, obviously, as you said, this series, it hasn't been a situation where Nathan Lyon has been needed or the Indian spinners have made that much of an impact.
No.
But we also know in Australia, spin does have a part to play. You look at Shane Warne, Nathan Lyon. You look at Stuart McGill.
Yeah.
These are people that have taken between them. What's that? 1,500 plus wickets.
Yeah.
So you need to have a quality spinner.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is we're basing this side. One, the ball being fit, and two, that potentially, like you mentioned about Zach Crawley or any other players, really, is maintaining that level of performance. Because if they have a poor summer, and without sounding negative, that could happen with one of the, not necessarily. I doubt it with Brook and Root especially, but Ben Duckett, really, I think he has nailed that opening spot, to be fair, and he's doing really well. Yeah, 100%. So that for me, I'm okay with. But that two, so your other opener and then your number three, whoever, if it's going to be Bethel or somebody else, if they have poor summers, you then really back to the drawing board again, and then you talk about balance of sides. That might completely mess up your plans in terms of what you're potentially going to be having, and it could be something similar to what Australia went into this summer, where they wasn't sure whether they weren't sure of the fitness of Mitch Marsh. Could he get overs in? Could he not get overs in? Where did that leave the opening position at that point? It seemed at one point it was going to be, McSweeney or whoever it was going to be, or they're going to bring one of Marcus Harris's and whoever it would be, and it was all about trying to get the balance right and this and that. But so much changed in the space of like the month before the series started. We're talking, the best part of 11 months before the series started. So much could change and things like that. It's going to be an interesting 11 months.
I mean, you look at Australia, for example, the way that Mitch Marsh looks now, and obviously we know that Cam Green, if fit, he will be playing.
Yes,
They will. It's made for him, for example. So it's just, as you said, there's a lot of ups and downs. Does Usman Khawaja make it to the Ashes? He's 38 years old. He'll be 39 then. So lots of different things.
Yeah. What's your gut feeling? I wanted to ask you this when we were speaking a couple of days ago. What is your gut feeling? Do you think Usman Khawaja will make it to the Ashes?
I think he wants to. I'm not sure that he does. I think it solely depends on, obviously, how he feels after this series, and how he goes in Sri Lanka. I think how he goes in Sri Lanka will play a big part, because they won't want to blood someone new in the Ashes again, especially after having Constance just coming in. Yeah. So if they do want to do that, then they will take someone new to the Caribbean so that they have at least 2 games under their belt of international cricket, and then build them up through the domestic season before the Ashes starts.
Have they released the dates when it's going to be in the Caribbean, when Australia are going to play West Indies in the Caribbean?
I think it's June. Is it June or July? But sometime in the summer.
Right. Because I know they've increased it to 3 tests, haven't they, rather than 2 as well, which is good for West Indies cricket, which is a bonus. I think my gut feeling, I think Uzu will play in the Ashes, because I think he will have a good series in Sri Lanka, because I think he plays spin very, very well. So I think he'll hold it, and I think that whether he gets there through the skin of his teeth or not, I do think they'll go with him. And I think once Cam Green comes back into it, that'll then leave. That you'll give that openers talk another whole new spin on it, really, and whether they go with what they mentioned in it, well, what was talked about was whether they're going to open up with Mitchell Marsh at the top of the order like he does in white ball or not. But ultimately, that the ball is with Sam Constance at the minute. So if he can keep doing what he's doing, then he's not getting dropped. As simple as that.
I mean, Sri Lanka will be a difficult tour for Constance, but I think learning opportunity. I think the West Indies will be an interesting tour, because the West Indies bowling attack, to me, is shaping up very nicely. Obviously, with Jaden Seals just continue to grow. Jamar Joseph, I think he's got some sort of shin issues at the moment, but hopefully he's fit and ready to go then. I'm not sure if Kemar Roach will be around then, but you still have Alzari Joseph, and then I think Gudakesh Moti as well. So
they've got
West Indies bowling attack. Yeah, it's gonna. So they're gonna have two good test series leading into that, as well as a domestic season where they generally try to play at least 3 games from what I can remember, and sort of have some game time. I think what's been interesting there is because the Australian players obviously are getting a bit older now, it seems as though like they're taking a bit longer to get going at the start of series. So you see that they're going down 1-0 a bit more. So I'm not sure if they try and play a bit more cricket beforehand to come into a series fit and firing from the start, as opposed to building up in a series.
Yeah, I think they'll adapt something, whether that be bringing the Shield season slightly forward, or whether they adapt something in terms of they might play a stronger 11 in like a Prime Minister's 11 or like an 8. Not like a Prime, I don't know. You know how they sometimes obviously play. I don't know. I agree with what you were saying, though. I think they'll tweak it ever so slightly to make sure that they're firing rather than firing up. I think it's a really good point that you made that, because I've noticed that, to be fair, because they didn't look at it at all in that first test. Some of the dismissals were really like out of character as well. So
yeah,
no,
100%.
Well, an excellent end of year review. Points we agreed on. Points where I made myself look a bit silly, but we'll hold my hands up and we go again to 2025. But I just want to say, obviously, thank you to everybody who's joined us this year. We really do appreciate it. Whether that be listening to us on iTunes and Spotify and the likes and Amazon, and also watching on YouTube. For myself and Kieran, we can't thank you enough for joining us, and we wish you all the best for 2025. So thank you very much.
Happy New Year to all our listeners. We're going to start the new year off with a very special guest, a very big guest. So stay tuned. We're looking forward to it.
No, I can't wait. And a very, very big guest is a great way of putting it. I'm looking forward to it. So thank you very much, everyone, and all the best for 2025.